right ankle, PG is still nursing a sore hamstring. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're a slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP. Make some noise and go ahead and celebrate good times. Come on!
KBLA Talk 1580 is pleased to announce a can't-miss community event.
It's a celebration.
Welcome home, Mayor-elect Karen Bass.
Oh my God!
Join us for this free public event as we celebrate Mayor-elect Bass's historic victory. There'll be entertainment, food trucks, and a diverse array of vendors, along with attendance and participation from community leaders, elected officials, celebrities, business owners, and other notables. KBLA Talk 1580 will host Mayor-elect Bass on the main stage as we reflect on the importance of this moment and what it means for the Black community, women, and all Angelinos who believe in the limitless potential of our amazing city. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 and our social media platforms for all the important details. We look forward to celebrating with Mayor-elect Karen Bass and you.
We gon' celebrate your party with you. Come on now, it's a celebration. 1, 2, 3,
try to keep it coming. Things ain't always smooth, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the groove. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while. Yes, I will. I'm just happy to see you talk to me back and smile again.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you right now to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and take us with you anywhere in the world and listen to us in real time, but only by downloading our app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast of this program and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program right now by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or going to our YouTube channel. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, why is it so hard to talk about the so-called N-word? Even today, some argue that the word has been repurposed over the many years, and black folk can now use it as they, underline that word they, as we see fit. Others opine that the word is still destructive, repulsive, and dangerous. Dr. Elizabeth Pryor, associate professor at Smith College, discusses her award-winning article, The Etymology of N-Word Resistance, Language and the Politics of Freedom in the Antebellum North, in Hour 2. And speaking of the N-word, Professor Elizabeth Pryor is the daughter of the legendary and iconic comedian Richard Pryor. You see what I did there? N-word, Richard Pryor. We'll talk to Dr. Pryor about that when we get to Hour 2. In our third Hour 2 conversations, at the top of the hour, we'll speak with House Majority Whip James Clyburn Come January, Democratic leadership will pass the gavel, as we all know, to Republicans who will now govern the House. Help us, Lord. Even though Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, and Whip Clyburn all easily won their re-election, they have announced that they will step down from their leadership positions, paving the way for a new generation of Democratic leaders. All three, Pelosi, Hoyer, Clyburn, stepping aside. There will be a brand new generation of Democratic leaders in the House. And so we'll talk to James Clyburn on what's next for him, and more importantly, what's next for Democrats at the top of Hour 3. On the B side of Hour 3, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving without a conversation with an award-winning chef. And so on the back side of Hour 3, we'll be joined by chef and TV host Gennard Wells and discuss his newest book, Southern Inspired. More than 100 dishes, delicious dishes from my American table to yours. But in this first hour today, in an age where we are bombarded with information like never before, it's often difficult to distinguish between the truth, spin, and flat-out fake news. In his new book, How to Win the War on Truth, Chris Spitali illustrates quite literally, and I'll explain that in a second here. For those who are watching on live stream, you'll see what I mean when I say he illustrates quite literally how propaganda helps government and corporate America sell us products, lifestyles, and ideas. How can we be better informed fellow citizens and debunk misinformation and disinformation when we encounter it? I am pleased to be joined live in studio by the author of How to Win the War on Truth, How Mistruths Are Sold, Why They Stick, and How to Reclaim Reality, Chris Spitali. Chris, how are you today, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here.
It's good to have you on the program. Congrats on the book. I'm always fascinated when I see books like this, and it's nicely done. As I said, I'll put this up to the camera in a little bit and kind of show the audience why I said the book. In the book, you literally illustrate how to fight this war on truth and win it. But I'm always fascinated by how people get turned on by a particular subject matter. Why is this your lane?
Well, my background was in mass communication. I went to the Manship School of Mass Communication at LSU. My bachelor's is in advertising with a minor in psychology, and my master's is in media management. Mm-hmm. And so my background's in journalism, even though my career took a turn. I worked at Lucasfilm for many years.
Oh, yeah.
In Star Wars.
George Lucas, yeah.
And Indiana Jones licensing and product development, and then left Lucasfilm a few years ago to focus on my own writing and in creative outlets. And but the older I've gotten, I feel like I've kind of harkened back to my journalism roots, especially since 2015, 2016. And, you know, with the election of 2016, I just kept encountering so many friends and relatives that seemed to be misled, to put it nicely. So many of the things they believe and, you know, we believe are just so not based in reality. I grew up in the Deep South from Louisiana originally. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, there are a lot of cultural myths we're raised on that I feel like I've outgrown or able to see through, having been out of the South for a long time. You know, in other places, I don't feel like they quite subscribe to the same beliefs. And so, just the older I've gotten, the more I realize just how many things we believe in this country and in our culture are just so not accurate. And they've been sold to us over the years. And so I'm kind of fascinated with, you know, why we buy into these beliefs, who sold them to us, how do we help people see through them? Because as you probably well know, you know, arguing facts or information often falls on deaf ears.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
It does indeed. I like this phrase, cultural myths. To your mind, what is the difference, the distinction between a cultural myth, given that you're from the South, and just a flat-out lie?
Well, you know, the journalists are usually pretty hesitant to use the word lie because...
We'll talk about that, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, so lie often suggests that the person making the statement knows it's a lie, as opposed to a falsehood, which is something maybe they're repeating that sounds like a lie, but they may actually believe it. You know, Trump's a great example. There's so many lies, falsehoods, and myths out of his mouth. It's tough to know from one moment to the next. You know, does he know what he's saying is a lie? And, you know, mentally, I don't know if he always does. I think he believes his own BS a lot of the time. So, and so a myth is more something like I think of myths more as a story we tell ourselves to explain something that may not always be accurate, as opposed to propaganda, which is, can be a popular myth that's deliberately sold or that's reinforced, that's usually to someone's benefit in society.
Just getting started in this first hour in conversation with Chris Batali. His book is called How to Win the War on Truth, How Myth-Truths Are Sold, Why They Stick, and How to Reclaim Reality. We're going to talk in this hour about lies and about falsehoods and about propaganda. And we're going to come right back to this issue of why, as you heard Chris say a moment ago, so many people in the media, journalists to be exact, are afraid to use the word lie. If it's a lie, why not call it a lie? Why are journalists so afraid to use that particular little three-letter word? That and a great deal more as we move through this hour with Chris Batali on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
On Saturday, December 3rd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., come out and enjoy a free community health fair, co-sponsored by Pleasant Hill Baptist Church Health Ministry and the Central Neighborhood Health Foundation. The fair will be held on the church grounds at 2009 West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, with free health screenings, refreshments, jumpers for the kids, a visit from Santa, entertainment with a DJ, free food giveaway for the first 100 people who attend, as well as raffles and other prizes. There will also be open enrollment, health insurance representatives present. Attendees can get free blood pressure, glucose, HIV and STD testing, a dental screening, fluoride varnish, COVID testing, vaccines and boosters. Flu shots will also be offered. Housing navigation, mental health support, and education services will be available. Don't miss this free community health fair. Tell somebody and receive the gift of preventative health services this season. See you all on Saturday, December 3rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at 2009 West Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Los Angeles.
King C. Gillette is the modern man's answer to their facial hair. With a complete set of precision tools, the King C. Gillette line offers the perfect fit for your facial hairstyle. Want to try something great? Try the Style Master, the quintessential styling tool that every man needs to craft their style. It's a waterproof, cordless trimmer with a long-lasting 4-directional blade. It's extremely versatile and designed to edge, trim, and stubble in 4 directions on any hair length. Master your style with King C. Gillette.
Favorite family tradition? Shopping Kohl's Black Friday with my mom. We earned extra Kohl's cash, got a Google Nest Hub for $49.99, a Fitbit for just $99.99. Plus, I found a pizza grill for $179.99, and she got a fire pit for the same price. Not to mention the 15% off other great deals. Yeah, we're going back to Kohl's for round 2. Select styles. Offers valid through November 25th. Cuisinart, Google, and Fitbit coupons do not apply. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohls.com for details.
Our Weekly Los Angeles is the largest audited black newspaper in the state of California, with a distribution of over 50,000 copies weekly. Pick up a copy every Thursday to get the latest news on African American communities of LA. You can also keep up with what's going on in Los Angeles and surrounding cities by going to www.ourweekly.com. The Our Weekly website is updated daily with the current news about us and for us. For your advertising needs, Our Weekly offers economical advertising packages to fit your budget. Feel free to call Our Weekly Los Angeles at 323-905-1300 or visit the website at www.ourweekly.com. Our Weekly Los Angeles, reporting news that matters to you.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Chris Batali on KBLA Talk 1580. Glad to have you with us. Our phone number 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. His book is called How to Win the War on Truth, How Mistruths Are Sold, Why They Stick, and How to Reclaim Reality. Let me come back to that point you made a moment ago, Chris, that I want to give you a chance to sort of unpack and explain the way you see it. And that is this notion of the media, the news media, and why it is that they are so afraid to use the word lie. I have noted in watching coverage and being obviously a part of this industry that in the last year or so, they've gotten better about it. I think they were kind of fed up with Donald Trump after 4 years, even though they were complicit. Let's be clear. The mainstream media complicit in helping Donald Trump get elected with all the free airtime, et cetera, covering every single tweet like it was breaking news. For them it was, because it's clickbait, it's ratings, it's subscriptions. None of us are naive. We get all of that. So the media was complicit in electing Donald Trump and complicit in allowing a bunch of that nonsense to happen over that 4-year period. At some point, when he turned on them, they got sick of that, right? When he went after them, all of a sudden they found a spine. And little by little, I've seen them, certain people, unafraid to use the word lie. But writ large, why do you think it is that it took them so long to get around, again, not all, but some, to use the word lie? Why are they so afraid of calling a lie a lie?
That's a good question. Yeah, you're right. It took them quite a while to finally call a lie. And to me, even more egregious is when they're repeating the falsehood, or they're airing the footage of the falsehood or the claims or the tweets. And as long as you're re-airing it, you're still reinforcing it. Because there's a thing in the book that I refer to, the sleeper effect, and like the availability heuristic. And so the sleeper effect is when you remember something, but you may not remember whether it's true or not. Like if you took true or false tests as a kid, you may remember that statement on the test, but you don't remember if it's true or false. And so I feel like a lot of the Trump lies and misinformation have that effect. You remember the statement, but you don't remember its validity or not. And so to me, that's, as big of a problem as calling it out. If it's not true or if it's inaccurate, then don't repeat it or re-air it, period, to me, because all you're doing is reinforcing the lie. And so, I think, I don't know why it took them so long. I think they were a little caught off guard, probably, because they hadn't had anyone that lied this blatantly and pervasively. And so it took them a while to call it out. And finally, we're a lot better with it. But, there are media outlets that do nothing but lie and distort and have falsehoods constantly. And unfortunately, the only ones that seem to be calling them out are comedians on late night talk shows.
Yeah. Let me ask this. I mean, your book, again, is called How to Win the War on Truth. And when I saw this some weeks ago and decided that I wanted to have a conversation with you about it, my initial thought was whether or not that's even possible. Is it possible to win the war on truth? I hate to challenge the thesis of your text about winning the war on truth. I ask that because, as we all know, in this age of social media, a lie gets out of the blocks and makes 3 or 4 laps before the truth can even lace its sneakers, right? So the question is whether or not it is possible to win the war on truth before we move forward in this conversation.
Right. Well, I have this quote or epigraph in the introduction: "The amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than that needed to produce it," and totally encapsulates the book. So yeah, I think the title's aspirational. We hope we can, because what chance does democracy or reality have if we lose the war on truth? And so I think you can. It's just not as easy as countering misinformation with facts. It's equal parts a lesson in critical thinking, a lesson in media literacy, how to identify media messages. We assume because we consume so much media that we understand it or that we're media literate, and we're not necessarily, because we don't often distinguish the difference between media messages. We see something, but we don't identify that as that's advertising, that's publicity, that's PR, that's spin, that's journalism. And so, consumers need to become more aware of what's what.
What does it mean to be media literate, and more expressly, how does one become, in this age, media literate?
I mean, I think it's, kind of a crash course in mass communication, understanding the difference between those. We know what advertising looks like, or we think we do, and we know what marketing looks like, but it's not just a billboard advertising a new movie, or a new pair of sneakers or a Nike ad. Marketing is also, the idea that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, or, the idea of taking a coffee break at work as opposed to taking a tea break or a soda break. These were all ideas that someone sold us. And so we're sold so much constantly by politicians, by bad actors online, like Alex Jones. There's just so much misinformation and disinformation out there that we really have to consider what it is, who's paying for that, who profits from that idea, whatever it may be. And so, media understanding the difference in media messages, I think, is essential, especially because when we're on Facebook or when we're on Twitter, those lines are so blurred. Ads or promoted tweets look just like news articles, and so we don't really stop to consider, oh, this is a news headline from a credible source, or this is journalism, or this is a fact, versus this is someone's opinion or someone's joke, or someone seeding misinformation to distract from something.
How do we know? I was talking on this program some days ago to Jaron Lanier, the father of virtual reality. So Jaron is as deep in this industry, this tech industry, this algorithm industry as anybody that I know. And we were talking a bit about this the other day, but you tackled this in your text, and that is this notion of being emotionally manipulated. I don't know that we know when we're being emotionally manipulated by the news, by the things that we see, much less what to do about it, if that makes sense.
Right. No, emotional awareness, emotional intelligence is extremely important. I almost feel like, we should have a psychology class or an emotional awareness class in school, just like every other subject. Because if we're not aware of our emotions when they're happening, then we can be very easily manipulated by them. And so, emotions underscore everything in life. They underscore what food we like. They underscore the decisions we make day to day. Emotions are always there, but they're usually the subtext. And so, unless you've gone through therapy or you work in the arts or something, you're often oblivious to what emotions are guiding your decisions throughout the day. And so becoming aware of the emotions, especially the negative emotions, can help us temper the emotions and also help us become aware of what's triggering that emotion. And so, it's very easy to manipulate people if you can rile up negative emotions in them. That's kind of the key tool of demagogues. If you can make people hate a group of people or angry at a group of people, then they're way easy to manipulate, because when the emotions are aroused, they're not using critical thinking. Emotions override critical thinking, and it's part of our natural fight or flight response. It's a mechanism that saved us from predatory animals in the past. But in this day and age, if we're not made to be aware of them, they can very easily be manipulated for someone's gain.
Speaking of critical thinking, that is, you mentioned a moment ago this notion of credible sources. And as a person who does this every day, I confess that I've been burned once or twice in my career. It is hard, and I've learned from that, of course, and now I know how to better handle that. And I teach the folk around me how to better handle that. But it is often the case that people read stuff and they don't really know why they shouldn't believe it, or put another way, they don't know what to believe, because you see stuff online, you see stuff in print, and you don't know what a credible source is. So what say you then about credible sources?
To me, credible sources are Pulitzer Prize winners and journalists who have spent their entire career researching certain subject matter, or academics who, in their profession, who were experts on that subject. Political pundits and partisan outlets are not experts. And so an expert is someone who's done the research and is an expert in their field. And so, when we see news items that reinforce our biases or our negative emotions, chances are that's not a credible source. I feel like experts are usually nonpartisan. The information may seem nonpartisan or may seem partisan, but that doesn't mean it is. Just because if someone's debunking election fraud lies, that doesn't make them partisan toward that side. That's just reality. But whoever stands to lose that argument will spin it as partisan, just because it doesn't help their case.
Speaking of politics and the sort of narrative you laid out a moment ago, how do you process this notion, how do you process this reality, I should put it that way, this reality that we see every day, where there are certain media outlets who are intent on representing both sides of an argument, even if one side we all know is a complete lie. We know it's bogus, right? But they will give equal time to someone because they feel it's their journalistic responsibility to show both sides of the issue.
Yeah, that drives me crazy.
Yeah, me too.
Because usually when they do that, the sides are right and wrong.
Exactly.
So the false equivalence, yeah, I feel like it's just kind of incompetence on their end, because what they're trying to do is so that the side that the information doesn't favor doesn't complain and say that they have a bias. You know, they give both sides equal airtime, and that drives me crazy because you shouldn't have two pundits with different objectives arguing. Like, I just want to see an economist. If we're talking, like, for instance, not long, on CNN, this drives me crazy. I don't remember who they were interviewing, but they were interviewing a congressman, and they were asking about inflation. Like, oh, do you regret voting for the stimulus package because of inflation's being high? And the person was answering that question when, to me, like, the question itself was bad. Like, no, that didn't cause inflation. Our measly stimulus checks from 2 years ago has not caused worldwide inflation. What it does, corporate greed, or the war in Ukraine, or the repercussions of the COVID pandemic. And so to not debunk that right away, drives me crazy. But, like, I wouldn't have asked, again, if I was running the program, I wouldn't have had the congressman on regardless. I would have Robert Reich, or an economist, like, asking them to clear up the myth that somehow our stimulus checks caused inflation.
Versus allowing someone to spin.
Or having two sides to the debate. Sure. They do that a lot with, like, abortion or whatever the hot issue is, instead of, it drove me crazy when they were talking about whether or not abortion should be legal or illegal, when it doesn't matter. The abortion rate is the same, regardless, in countries where it's legal and countries where it's illegal. So, like, we're having the wrong debate to begin with. Yeah. And then you're acting like the debate is between those two sides, and it's not. It's about safe abortions versus unsafe.
Let me ask you in 60 seconds, and we'll continue on the other side of news, traffic, and sports. Is there, since you mentioned CNN, and we can mention other networks, is there a liberal media bias? The right loves to use that phrase. Is there a liberal media bias?
Oh, this is such a, I have a lengthy answer for this one, but let's do the short version is...
No, hold it. Okay, we can hold it. Okay. So the question is, is there such a thing as a liberal media bias? Our friends on the right love to complain about the liberal media bias. We'll give Chris Spitali a chance to unpack his lengthy answer to that question when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports on this Thanksgiving Eve. You are listening to Tavis Smiley and Chris Spitali on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Authorities are trying to determine the motive following a mass shooting in Chesapeake, Virginia. At least 7 people are dead and several others injured following a shooting at a Walmart store. Jesse Wilkowski says the shooter was a Walmart manager who ambushed fellow employees as the night shift began. She spoke with NBC affiliate Wavy 10.
It didn't even look real until you could feel when the gun goes off, the pow, pow, pow.
Most of the injured were taken to Centera Norfolk General Hospital. One of the victims is a 20-year employee of the store. His sister says he will be okay. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your source for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Remember, if you need to head to the airports, do arrive 2 hours ahead of your domestic flight, 3 hours ahead of your international travels. If you're off to the mountains, the beaches, the deserts, always best to check your vehicle fluid and tire pressure. Increased holiday traffic and congestion heavy this afternoon and evening as travelers take off for the extended weekend coming up. Seeing troubles as you travel Sherman Oaks, Van Nuys, West 101 at Van Nuys Boulevard, 4 right lanes with a toppled over rig as far back as the 134-170, the busy drive. And Mid-City still seeing this wreck on the 10 West at La Brea. Onto the right shoulder now, but kind of busy from Normandy.
At In-N-Out, our hamburgers are made with the highest quality ingredients, made fresh and by hand, made with a smile, and made to order just for you.
Is this the tackle?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers wasted another outstanding performance by Anthony Davis. They lose by 10 last night in Phoenix. Davis had 37 points and 21 rebounds. It's the fourth straight game AD has had at least 30 points and 15 rebounds. The NBA is going to take some money out of Patrick Beverley's bank account. Beverley was ejected late in the fourth quarter for knocking Phoenix center DeAndre Ayton to the floor after play had stopped. Beverley was given a flagrant one foul, which comes with an automatic fine. Don't be surprised if Beverley also gets a suspension. The Clippers won't have Kawhi Leonard or Paul George for tonight's game in Golden State. Leonard has a sprained right ankle. PG is still nursing a sore hamstring. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're a slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
When you're the victim of a car accident, hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call on me, your MVP.
Congratulations to this week's KBLA Talk 1580's Office of the Week, Community Legal Aid SoCal. Advocates for justice in Orange and Los Angeles counties. Congratulations, Community Legal Aid SoCal.
Over 100 million people around the world have felt the thrill of Broadway's most spectacular musical, Disney's The Lion King. And now you can too. Experience this breathtaking theatrical event and see why the New York Times declares there is simply nothing else like it.
Give the gift that roars at the Pantages Theater, February 2nd through March 26th. Visit BroadwayInHollywood.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and they're putting their money where their mouth is at. So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community, and you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase, and give them another look. If I go to another institution, I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right, Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
This Sunday and every Sunday is the African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market. Get free groceries, essential resources, and buy black from local merchants of arts, beauty, custom black merchandise, and more. Choose from a wide variety of cuisines, custom-made clothing, jewelry, and a lot more. Experience the true essence of Africatown at Lamert Park every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Join the Drum Circle, dance, enjoy live performances, connect with other conscious black people. Experience black excellence every Sunday in Africatown at Lamert Park. You can find us on Degnan Boulevard near Vernon and Crenshaw in the heart of Africatown at Lamert Park. That's the African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market. Join us for music, shopping, food, and fun this and every Sunday. Support black businesses, recycle black dollars, and feed your soul. The African Marketplace and Drum Circle Community Market every Sunday in Africatown at Lamert Park. Brought to you by Africatown Enterprise and the African Village Vendors Association.
Looking for legitimate political discourse without the bear spray? Tune in and speak out. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis Smiley. He's Chris Batali. His book is called How to Win the War on Truth, How Mistruths Are Sold, Why They Stick, and How to Reclaim Reality. Not a more propitious time for this conversation, given that Donald Trump is now back on the campaign trail. So we will see what these next few weeks, months, and a couple years bring as he is out campaigning, and the media has to confront how to cover him this time around. We'll get Chris's take on that, how the media did last time covering him, and what they ought to have learned, what they could learn, in fact, from reading his book about how to cover Donald Trump and win the war on truth, or put another way, on the lies and falsehoods that he will be spinning, I'm sure, in the days to come. Before news, traffic, and sports, though, I just teed up for Chris this question that he said required some time to respond to. Now he's got the time. The question is there such a thing as a liberal media bias?
So, yeah, I have a few answers for this one. Okay. So, the first is the origin of the term itself. This whole notion of the media having a liberal bias came out of the Nixon White House by former U.S. military propagandists. And it was an instrument of Nixon's vendetta with the press, whose aim was to discredit the media as pro-communist in the eyes of the public. To quote David Brock, of Media Matters, it was part of a deliberate strategy to build political support for Nixon's Vietnam policies, for the Pinochet military coup in Chile, and more broadly for an aggressively militant U.S. posture toward the Soviet Union. So the term was used to undercut unfavorable news coverage that was broadcast on the news every night by Nixon. And the idea was that if you can accuse the media of being liberal, then the Nixon White House could deflect all the damaging news coverage in hopes of swaying public opinion back in their favor. So by repeatedly using the term, they encouraged the media outlets to self-censor and treat conservative politicians more favorably. And ever since, any information conservative commentators haven't liked has been purported to have a liberal bias, which implies whoever uses the term is the only one not biased. And so, in those regards, it's not justified. However, if you look at, Colbert once said reality has a liberal bias, and to a degree, I think that's true, because the media's job is to speak truth to power and to hold the powerful accountable. That's their role. That's the role they're supposed to play in society. And traditionally, that power structure has been right-wing. So, we think of liberal and conservative today as these two political labels, and we have different ideas about what they are. But to get to the root of what they are, this left-right orientation dates back to the French Revolution, when King Louis XVI called a meeting to handle the country's fiscal crisis. So the power brokers and the moneyed interests who agreed with the king, the one percenters of the time, assembled to his right, and the lower class and the middle class and everyone else who disagreed with the monarchy assembled to his left. And so that division between left and right is virtually the same today, with the left representing the labor class and the interests of the people, and then the right representing the ruling or the corporate class. And the fact that the ruling and the corporate class are the same is not a coincidence. Because as I think it was the Middle Ages, as a middle class was developing for the first time, the ruling class felt threatened, and so they created corporations in order to control the middle class, so they could regulate them and grant monopolies. So the right wing traditionally has been whatever the power structure is. So which started with the church, which is where the word propaganda comes from. It means spreading the faith, because when the church was, when their power was threatened by Protestantism, they needed to proselytize. So that's where propaganda originated. And then from the church, it became the monarchy, and then the aristocracy and corporations. So it's usually the power structure. And if you look at the definitions of liberal and conservative, liberal is fighting for government protections of equality, equal rights, and conservative is defined by basically its resistance to change, tradition, order of the current power structure. And so if it seems like media has a liberal bias, it's because they're holding truth to power, and that power is very often conservative, whether that's, oil and gas companies or, whatever it is. And so I think that's why a lot of times we see it as a liberal bias, mainly because it's holding those people accountable.
Yeah, you could not have done that in 60 seconds before news and traffic and sports. I see why you needed time. And now that you've taken the time to explain it, let me ask you a few questions. First of all, let me just say I love doing this show every day because, as I say all the time, I leave the studio smarter every day than when I entered. And it's nice to know where these terms come from. Now, if you're listening as I am to this conversation, you know where the word propaganda came from in now you know where the term liberal media bias came from. Richard Nixon created it back in the day. So now you know where that term came from and why it is that Republicans have used it so masterfully, frankly, down through the years. Speaking of Republicans using that particular term masterfully, Chris Patali, one of the things that I've noted, and I've had many conversations over the years with a lot of people, including my friend Frank Luntz, we've had this conversation about words that work and words that matter. Why is it, speaking of how to win the war on truth, the name of your book, why is it that Republicans seem to be better at coming up with these terms and these phrases and using them, as you said, repeatedly to great effect?
Well, I think it's because, those on the left often assume, and unfortunately incorrectly, that the truth or reality will sell itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Al Gore is a great example. He's constantly trying to educate us on global warming and climate change. Whereas the right is not presenting information on that. They're resisting that, that knowledge. And so often, we think of issues as being two-sided, but they're often not. Like when science comes out of academia or research, most of the time people agree on what the problem is. The disagreement should be on how to solve it. But when that well-established science enters the public sphere, suddenly there's resistance, and that's what creates the two-sided issue. And so for those, deniers of science, like the oil and gas industry or the tobacco lobby, they spend a lot of time and money creating the doubt and sowing the discord, and there's just so much effort into the propaganda outlet. And science and academia and researchers, that's not their job to create marketing campaigns to sell reality.
How do they do that so successfully? Because they do, in fact, create a significant amount of doubt, not just in elected officials, but inside the demos.
You look at in the book, I have this graphic, I don't know what page it's on, but like the think tank map, because the right has put so much money into the war of ideas, into selling the public on positions that only benefit the wealthy and corporations, from tax cuts stimulating the economy to, denying global warming to, there's just so much. And so I think that, you have to, there it is, a major map of major U.S.
What page are you on?
Page 169.
Okay.
So, you look at, and this says liberal and conservative think tanks, but you could see that the vast majority of think tanks, especially the ones with big money, are mostly conservative. And, this is how they win the war of ideas, is they fund, schools, they fund judges, they fund so many entities in society with a pro-corporate, anti-consumer agenda.
Miles, can you get this on this camera? I don't know. Let me hold this up. I want to show you, for those who are watching us on our live stream, that's why I love doing the live stream thing, because you can see things that you obviously can't see when you're listening on radio. I'm glad to have all of you tuning in, but the live stream does offer us some different opportunities. I'm showing this particular page because this is what Chris was just referencing, of course, about these think tanks. But I'm raising it to the camera because I want to ask you how these think tanks came to be. Speaking of winning the war on truth, this was a brilliant idea, whoever came up with it. And clearly there are many more on the right than there are on the left. The left's been trying to play catch up for years now. But this idea, Chris, of creating these think tanks, all these people do is raise money to pay for individuals to sit around all day and just think. That's why they're called think tanks. They sit around and they think, they do research, they write papers, they push this stuff out in the public, and they have a huge effect in the discourse, in the debate about these issues, be it climate change or taxes, the welfare state. I could do this all day long, but they have a huge impact on these debates because they're a bunch of good white folk, frankly, mostly on the right, sitting around in nice buildings with coffee and tea and the like, and all they do all day is read and research and think and write, and they push this stuff out into the public, and that's what impacts these debates. Whoever came up with this idea to establish these think tanks, it was a great idea.
Well, you have to look at what came first. What came first is the 1960s and 70s push for consumer protections. So, you had Congress demanding, requiring seatbelts in cars. You had the environmental movement.
This is the Ralph Nader era when Ralph was really on top of things.
Yes, this whole era of preserving the rivers and the air, adding warning labels to cigarettes, preventing banks from ripping off consumers, inspecting cattle for disease before they're slaughtered, like all of these things that made society better. But the result of that, even like making kids' pajamas less flammable, like these are things that are no-brainers. But the industries for all of these fought this because it cost them money. And, honestly, the corporations don't care about pollution or environmental catastrophe. Like, corporations exist to make money. And if that means they can make more money by polluting rivers, then they do it. That's the repercussions of living in an unfettered capitalist system. And so all of these consumer protections, worker protections, environmental protections really peeved the power structure, because what does that do? That threatens their power. Government regulation threatens their power. Popular opinion that wants the regulation threatens their power. So basically they got together, and it was epitomized by Lewis Powell, who Nixon appointed to the Supreme Court. Basically, he sent this memo that declared that corporations were under attack. The corporation's liberty was being threatened. And corporations' liberty was more important than consumers' liberty. Consumers wanted the freedom to not die of poisoned groundwater. And by doing that, you're infringing on the liberty of the corporation who has the right to pollute. And so all of these companies got together and, created an agenda. They funded think tanks. The Federalist Society came out of this. All the Koch-funded think tanks came out of this. Yeah.
Let me cut in and push the pause button just for a second here. We'll come back to this notion when we come forward about how these think tanks have been on the forefront of this fight, advancing the kind of narrative that they want the rest of us to be seduced by. But we're talking to Chris Spitali in this hour about how we fight back and how we win the war on truth, how mistruths are sold, why they stick, and how to reclaim reality. We'll get right back to this conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We don't try to be all things to all people. We just remain true to who we are. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Yvonne Wheeler appointed new president of the LA County Federation of Labor. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. November 21st made it official. Yvonne Wheeler was elected the new president of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. The historic unanimous vote by her peers makes Wheeler the first ever black woman to hold the title, and this makes her one of the most influential people in Los Angeles politics. The LA Fed is the second largest central labor body in the nation. It's a federation of over 300 affiliated union and labor organizations that represent more than 800,000 members. LA Fed is known for fighting better wages, establishing respect in the workplace, and the vast political influence their endorsements hold. Wheeler's election comes in the wake of a political scandal involving former LA Fed President Ron Herrera and 3 city council members where they were recorded making racist remarks during a meeting about redistricting. Follow KBLA on social media at KBLA 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours, now through December 20th. All of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net, and together we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to Chris Patali on KBLA Talk 1580. His book is called How to Win the War on Truth. You mentioned earlier that the media's role, their responsibility is to hold power accountable, to speak truth to power, I might add, to speak truth to the powerless as well. But on the former, how do you think they're doing?
Well, I think I don't know. I guess it depends on the outlet and it depends on the day. But they don't always do a great job. They often really just reiterate the talking points. Like so much of the media, like to me, the media, if anything, has a conservative bias because the way they report news, it's all about the corporation or the power players and not about the little guy. Like, we have a labor shortage at the moment and not a livable wage shortage. Or when, Disney buys another company, it's all about how Disney's expanding their portfolio, but not about how all the thousands of employees are going to be laid off because of redundancy. Like so much in our society is seen through that, the capitalist corporate frame and not what's best for society. And we're just so used to it, we don't even question it. But when you really start to think about it, everything is through that lens and that filter that doesn't help the little guy and society as much as corporations.
It's a powerful point. I think you just sharing that has helped a lot of people in conversations over the holidays with our conservative friends and family. We can now make the argument, well, there's really no liberal media bias when you think about it in the way the news is reported. As Chris just said quite powerfully and poignantly, there's more to be accurate, a conservative media bias. And now you know how to make that argument, courtesy of Chris Patali. Let me ask you right quick about politicians. I'm going to talk to Jim Clyburn, as you heard earlier, later in today's program, the majority whip who's stepping down, along with Steny Hoyer, majority leader, Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker. Those three leaders have been there for a while now. They're stepping aside, even though they won their House seats. So there'll be new Democratic leadership on the House side. But I want to ask, given that we just came through this one campaign, election season, of course, we still got a couple races left, namely Georgia. And, of course, Trump is back on the ballot, or will be, for the next presidential race. But talk to me very briefly here and quickly about how politicians use identity politics, which you hear about all the time, identity politics. But ultimately, it's oftentimes used to create an us versus them reality, Chris.
So, we all have biases. And it's because of the tribes we belong to. So when you consider your own gender, your own sex, your hometown, your alma mater, your race, your favorite football team, your religion, all of those are our tribes, and they filter how we see the world. And so the problem with that, it could be very unifying, but what it does is those who are not in our tribe can seem like this other or them. Because if we're Catholic, then every other religion is them, even if that's like 1,000 other different religions. So what politicians do for identity politics is they take those tribes and create an us versus them and make us fearful of the other. And that other can be gays or immigrants or Jews. And it's so easy to scapegoat people who are not like us. It's like the easiest thing is to hate somebody. And so if politicians are not appealing to our better natures and not trying to unify us, because we're all human, we're all, trying to make a living, we're all trying to get by day to day. If they are trying to segment us into thinking of another group as a them, then they're usually up to no good.
Our remaining moments with Chris Patali when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
At Cedars-Sinai, we're honored to be named the #1 hospital in California and the #2 hospital in the nation in U.S. News & World Report's Best Hospitals Honor Roll. We're also proud to be named #1 in 6 specialties in Los Angeles. Thank you to our physicians, nurses, academic leaders, and thousands of other team members who bring their best to Cedars-Sinai every day. Learn more about our top-ranked care at cedars-sinai.org.
We're
California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Come on, we're gonna be late to the cookout.
I was just packing up my famous mac and cheese.
I hope you packed the Pepto, too.
Huh?
Pepto-Bismol provides fast relief from heartburn and indigestion. You know, that uncomfortable feeling after you eat too much, and after the deviled eggs, baked beans, and barbecue ribs. You're gonna need it.
Barbecue ribs? I should probably pack an extra shirt, too.
Good call.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto-Bismol. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Our remaining moments here, 3 minutes with Chris Batali. His book is called How to Win the War on Truth, How Mistruths Are Sold, Why They Stick, and How to Reclaim Reality. The book is illustrated quite nicely, so it's a book chock full of information, but there are illustrations all the way through it, and we should thank it. Who's it, Alan Wincup?
Yeah, Alan Wincup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Canadian friend of mine who did a fantastic
great
job.
A great job on the illustrations. I love it. It makes it easier to follow all the factoids that you're laying out for us. 2 questions in the 2.5 minutes that we have left. Number one, how do we tame this notion, particularly in a moment like this? How do we tame this notion of us versus them?
Yeah, I think we need to stop thinking of them as a them and instead think of it as an us. So, for instance, when people are trying to demonize immigrants and talk of a border crisis, we can't assume the immigrants have nefarious means. We have to think, what would make us immigrate? Like, what would be so bad that we would flee our own country for a better life?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of that, what are the answers? It's, your life's threatened, a better life, better job, but usually you're running from something, some kind of danger. And so instead of demonizing immigrants as, trying to come here and commit crime, I mean, they could commit crime in their own country.
Yeah.
If they're coming here, they're trying to do so for safety reasons.
Yeah.
And so we need to have empathy and consider their perspective.
Here's the exit question, the final question. How do we, speaking of how to win the war on truth, how do we find the truth for ourselves?
Well, I hope the book does a good job of teaching that. And I think the answer boils down to critical thinking. I feel like knowing the forces at work that are trying to manipulate us, questioning who benefits by every belief we have. If we see a news item and it appeals to our biases or it makes us angry at something, question who benefits by that. And the answer is always someone in power. The disadvantaged group is not going to benefit by the propaganda because that's not where it comes from. It comes from the powerful. So holding the powerful accountable, learning to see through their bullshit, and appealing to or focusing on our positive emotions and our values as opposed to being manipulated into hating another group or being angry at a group.
So you don't get confused when you go looking for this book. It's actually written by a guy named Samuel C. Spitali. It's spelled,
my first name.
Exactly. It's spelled Spitale. Samuel C. Spitali. We call him Chris because he goes by Chris. We call him Chris Spitali, but the book is Samuel C. Spitali. The book is called How to Win the War on Truth, How Mistruths Are Sold, Why They Stick, and How to Reclaim Reality. Chris, congrats on the book. Happy Thanksgiving. Safe travels back home. Good to have you come in to see us today.
Thank you for having me. This has been great.
In the next hour, Richard Pryor's daughter, Dr. Elizabeth Pryor, on the N-word. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm